What defines sick to you? Sick in appearance, sick physically, sick mentally, and at what level do you gauge sickness? There's severe sickness, there's, the sickness that you can get rid of with a little over-the-counter medicine, and there's that life-threatening sickness that we all kind of stand in fear of. I just had I guess I would call it the privilege of seeing a different type of movie. It was entitled Sick, the Life and Times, Sick, the Life and Death of Bob Flanagan, SuperMasochist. I had never heard of this movie before. It happened to be on my Netflix queue. It happened to be in the Netflix selections, and I put it on my queue for later viewing. Very interesting movie. A documentary about a man who has suffered from cystic fibrosis since birth, and children who are diagnosed with this disease don't live very long. I guess the first prognosis was that he was going to die as an infant, then he wouldn't live past a couple of years, then he wouldn't live past 8 years, he would die in his teens, so on and so forth. And he finally did succumb to the disease at the age of about 42, I believe. He was a masochist. He was a performance artist. He was a writer, a comedian of sorts. He was even a camp counselor at a camp for kids who had cystic fibrosis. And he was actually the subject of a young girl's Make-A-Wish. She wanted to meet him because she was also stricken with cystic fibrosis. Cystic fibrosis is basically a disease where your lungs make too much phlegm and fluid, and you're practically drowning on your own fluids. He got into the world of masochism and had pain inflicted on him. He would perform doing different things to himself. He had a partner, her name was Rose, who would do things to him on stage, in video, in photos, and he said it was his way of gaining control of his body. He had no control over it, and this was his way of gaining control of it. The movie didn't pull very many punches. There was a few scenes where he's tied up and she's cutting him with a razor on the side, taking pictures of him, slapping him in the face, slapping him with leather. One where he's on a table and she's talking about the different things that she does and the things that they like to experience together. And at one point she takes this metal ball that's not very much smaller than a baseball or a tennis ball. It's made of steel, I guess, and she pops it up his rectum with a little force, puts it in there, and he's grunting and groaning, but it's what he does. It's what they do. He had a lot of art exhibits where he was part of the exhibit at different art museums. He was on display, basically. He did a thing where he's sitting in a hospital bed and people are walking past him. He's got the oxygen machine on and stuff, and they do this thing called ascension, where they pull him up by his ankles and raise him up in the air upside down. And there was one lady in the crowd that kind of told him that she didn't like it. She told him straight out, "I don't like this thing." And he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever. Go on about your business then." But he would do talks. He would do performances. They have video footage of him throughout various stages where he's feeling okay, and then some where he's just not looking so good. According to what I read about the movie, he only agreed to do the movie, to participate in the project, if his death was included in the project. So we actually watch him from a very young age on the Danny Thomas show. He's in the audience all the way up through his performances, all the way up till he takes himself to the hospital when he's not feeling too good, and he's fighting for air, and everyone's telling him, if it's your time to go, it's time to go, and you almost think he's going to die right then and there, and then at some point he's sitting up just expressing how he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's asking, "Am I dying?" And they're like, "Yeah, you're dying." He says, I don't understand this." And then the next scene, he's like a fish out of water. He's gasping, like really trying to draw in air. The video part of this ends, but there's a lot of photographs that his partner Rose takes, and this is when they're checking him for his pulse and his heartbeat, and he's expired. And I guess she went down to the morgue area and took various pictures of him in state. And then they show his funeral. They show him being buried. And it was very poignant. It was very eye-opening. There's, like I said, it was a pretty violent documentary. There was a scene where he talked about, he's reading from a book, a journal that he was keeping, and he wrote about hammering a nail through his penis. And he said how he bled really bad. He said if you put a pin through it, it bleeds like there's a murder, so you can imagine a nail through it. And they actually show a clip of him hammering a nail through the head of his penis and then prying it out of the wood and then pulling it out, and there's like blood flying everywhere right into the screen. So there's a few scenes like that. And I think after his death, after all that, you see his partner at their house, and she's in a garage, and there's a plastic bag, and she pulls out this container. She's like, "Oh, it's been sitting here for a month. There might be all sorts of infection in here or whatever." She pulls it out, and it's a jar. I didn't know what it was going to be exactly at first, but what it winds up being, it's a jar about yay big, probably about 2 liters, and it's completely full of fluid and phlegm. It's all the stuff they took out of his lungs. So the man was drowning to death. It shed some light on a pretty horrible thing, and then also at the same time shows how one man can just fight against that and say, well, I'm going to say what I do, and no one else is going to tell me what I'm going to do. So he's been featured in like a 9 Inch Nails video. I forgot the name of the song, but they show a clip of that. They show him in some of his performances, like I said, his readings. They had this one thing called the Wall of Pain, where she would hit him or strike him or hurt him with different implements, and every time she hit him, she would take a picture. So each picture was his face in different expressions of pain, and it was like a whole big wall of these. So there's the Wall of Pain. He showed that at a museum during one of his displays, I guess. All in all, it was a very interesting documentary on a very interesting person, Bob Flanagan. And definitely, if you're for any number of reasons, just out of pure curiosity, I would recommend seeing it. It was a very strong movie, very strong doc, and it won a few awards too at like Cannes and things like that. I think I read where the director of the movie said that it got the best reception at a Los Angeles art museum, where one of the patrons there began masturbating at the scene where he drove the nail through the head of his penis. He thought that was like the best reception of that movie, so go figure. Definitely check it out. It's called Sick: The Life and Death of Bob Flanagan, SuperMasochist. It's available through Netflix, on Instant Queue, or through rental, or just pick it up on Amazon. I guess they would carry it. And that's my review for that one. I'll be seeing you guys soon.